In 2019, I was sitting in my living room during my daughter's nap time. Maternity leave was running out. I was literally panicking about having to go back to work and put her in daycare. I'd been trying to build an online business since 2006, 13 years, and I still hadn't figured it out. What I figured out during those nap times changed everything. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through over 10 years of lessons, what actually worked, what was an absolute waste of time, and exactly what I would do if I were starting today so that you can skip the part that took me 2 decades to learn. Now, if you are new here, I'm Caroline, and I'm a self-publisher who has been creating and selling books on Amazon for 8 years. And on this channel, I show you how to do the same. Before I get into self-publishing specifically, I want to start with something that would have saved me years. I spent from 2006 to 2019 building online businesses, a beauty blog, e-commerce stores, drop shipping, Amazon FBA, merch by Amazon, niche blogs, eBay, print on demand. I built a lot of things. Most of them made some money, but none of them were quite right. And what I realized after all of that is that I was evaluating business models on the wrong criteria. I was asking, can this make money? Instead of asking, does this business fit the life that I'm trying to build? So here are 3 questions that I now ask about any business model before I invest any kind of serious time into it. And I want you to apply these to self-publishing as I go through them, because this is how I know if it's the right fit for me and how you'll know whether it's the right fit for you too. Question 1, does it require me to outlay significant money before I make a single sale? Physical product businesses do, FBA does, dropshipping can, self-publishing on Amazon KDP doesn't. You can publish your first book totally free, and that matters enormously when you are starting out and the stakes are real. Question 2, is my income capped by the number of hours I can work? A service business is, freelancing is, a salary job definitely is, self-publishing isn't. Once a book is published, it can sell while you're sleeping, while you're at school pickup, while you're doing literally anything else. Your catalog of books that you publish work for you around the clock. That's not passive income, and I'll come back to that, but it is very scalable in a way that most businesses are not. Question 3, does it require me to be in a specific place at a specific time? If you're selling physical products, you need to be there to ship them out. If you're a service provider, you need to be there to show up for your clients. Self-publishing doesn't care where you are. I've had books selling while I was on holiday, traveling, while I was sick, while I was doing the school run. Those 3 questions are the filter that I wish I had had back in 2006. Run any business idea through them before you commit any real time to it. I want you to actually take something away from this video that you can implement yourself right now, today, so that you can figure out what is going to work for you. So here's your action step. Write down the business or the side hustle you're currently considering, or self-publishing itself if that's what you're considering, and answer those 3 questions honestly. If the answers don't align with the life you're trying to build, that's important information before you spend months and months on it. When I came back to self-publishing properly in 2019, I had 1 asset and 1 constraint, and those 2 things were the same thing: my daughter's nap times. My daughter slept for maybe an hour, sometimes 90 minutes, once or twice a day, and then went to bed at night at 7 p.m. That was my window. Everything that I built in those early months and even those early years had to happen inside those windows. So yes, I had to sacrifice things. I had to sacrifice relaxing and watching TV at night after she went to bed, and whatever hobbies that I liked to do after she went to bed. And here's what I learned from that. Constraint makes you better at business decisions because they force you to cut what doesn't work faster. When you have unlimited time, you can afford to spend 3 hours going down a research rabbit hole that leads you nowhere. When you have 90 minutes, you can't. You get very good very quickly at identifying what actually moves the needle and what just feels productive. If you're starting self-publishing with limited time, evenings, lunch breaks, nap times, early mornings, here's how I'd structure those sessions so they're actually useful. Decide before you sit down what the one thing is that you're going to complete in that work session. Not a list of things, one thing. Either you're doing niche research, or you're working on the interior of a book, or you're setting up a KDP listing. Not all 3 of those things, just one of them. The reason that this matters is because switching between tasks is where your time disappears. You sit down with an hour, you spend maybe 20 minutes on research, then you switch to Canva, you realize actually you need to go back back and check on something and you end up on YouTube watching someone's tutorial and your session is gone and you haven't really completed anything. One task completed every time. The second thing, keep a running document of your next 3 tasks that you want to accomplish so that when you sit down, you don't spend the first 15 or 20 minutes figuring out what you're going to do. Decision fatigue is real and it's a killer. Your future self has already decided. You just sit down and start. So your action step, before your next session to work on your self-publishing business, open a document, write down the single task that you're going to complete, not a to-do list, just one task. Set a timer for your available time and don't switch to anything else until it's done or until the timer goes off. In 2018, I published my first book on what was then called Create Space before it became Kindle Direct Publishing. It was a coloring book and I chose it because I love coloring books. I ordered a sample of it, loved the quality of it. I really liked the coloring book. And then I got distracted by toddler life and just totally forgot about it. When I came back in 2019, I did things differently. And the difference between how I chose books then versus how I choose them now is the difference between publishing something that you hope will sell and publishing something that the data tells you is already selling. Luckily for me, coloring books are not only something that I do actually love, they also happen to be one of the most popular books on Amazon. Here's what I do today if I were choosing a first book to publish. Start with a category, not a niche or a sub-niche. Go to Amazon and look up the bestseller lists in books. Don't start with what you want to make, start with what's already selling. Look at the top 100 in categories like activity books, puzzle books, coloring books, workbooks, maybe even journals. You're looking for books that are selling well, but don't have one dominant brand owning the space. Then take a look at reviews. A book with 500 reviews and a BSR is a bestseller rank, in the top 10,000 is selling really well. A book with 500 reviews and a BSR of, let's say, 200,000 probably used to sell well, but doesn't anymore. The bestseller rank tells you what is selling right now, not what sold 2 years ago. Then take a look at the covers. If every book in a category looks identical, so same fonts, same layout, same color palette, that's a crowded market where standing out is very hard. If there's variety in how the books look, there's room for a well-designed new book to come in. What I would avoid for a first book are things like blank-lined journals or blank-lined notebooks. That market got very saturated a few years ago and it has not recovered. I'd also avoid anything too seasonal for a first book. Things like Christmas activity books, Halloween coloring books, or maybe a Valentine's Day journal, because they only sell for a few weeks in a year, and you want your first book to teach you how the KDP platform works across a whole year. Puzzle books, coloring books, and activity books is where I would point most beginners right now. Word searches, crosswords, Sudoku, scissor skill books, dot to dots, they take more effort to create than a blank journal, which is exactly why they still sell. The barrier to entry to making those books keeps out those people who are just uploading in bulk and hoping for the best. So your action step, go to Amazon right now and spend 20 minutes in the book's bestseller lists. Pick one category that interests you and look at the top 20 books. Write down 3 observations: what's selling, what the covers look like, and whether there's a dominant brand owning the space or whether it's spread across a lot of different publishers. You're not committing to anything, you're just starting to see the market the way a self-publisher sees it rather than the way a customer sees it. By 2021, I had a catalog of books self-published under various different brands, and I made a mistake that I see a lot of self-publishers making at this stage. I thought the answer to more sales was more books. It isn't, or at least it isn't always. More books is one way, but it's not the only one, and it's usually not the most effective one. Here's what I'd focus on in, let's say, month 3 to 6 if I was starting again today. Keywords and categories first. Most people set these when they first self-publish their book and then never touch them again, and that's a mistake. Amazon's search algorithm uses your keywords to decide who to show your book to. If your keywords aren't matching what people are searching for, your book is essentially invisible, even if it is a great book. Go back to your existing listings and take a look at your keywords with fresh eyes. Are they specific enough? Are they what a buyer would actually type, or what you think a buyer would actually type into the search bar? There is usually a gap between those two things. Second, your cover. I know this sounds obvious, but I see self-publishers leaving money on the table all the time with covers that are fine, but not compelling. Fine doesn't sell books. On Amazon, your cover is your thumbnail. It needs to communicate what the book is and make someone want to click on it at the size of a postage stamp. If your cover looks exactly like every other book in your niche, or it's not as good, as all the other covers in your niche, it's doing nothing to earn the click. Third, reviews. Getting your first reviews is the hardest part and it's the most important part. A book with 0 reviews is a much harder sell than a book with 10 or more reviews, even if the book itself is identical. Somewhere inside your books, ask your customers for a review. Most people think that this is against Amazon's guidelines and terms of conditions. It is not. You are more than allowed to ask for a review. You just have to make sure that you're asking for an honest review. You can't ask for a good review or a 5-star review. You just have to ask for an honest review. These 3 things, keywords, covers, reviews, are what I would prioritize over publishing more books in those early months. Get the books that you have working properly before you add more. And your action step, go to one of your existing KDP listings right now if you have one and look at your 7 keywords. Type each one into the Amazon search bar and see what comes up. If your book isn't on the first page and the results that do come up look nothing like your book, that keyword is not working for you. Replace it with something more specific to what your book actually is. Here's the thing that I wish someone had told me clearly when I first started. Self-publishing is not passive income. I know that's not what a lot of people in self-publishing say, but it is the truth. And I think you deserve to hear it before you're 6 months in and wondering why it doesn't feel passive. It's not passive because Amazon's algorithm rewards active publishers. New books get a visibility boost. Updated keywords get reevaluated. Covers that get refreshed get a second look. A catalog that is being actively managed outperforms one that is being left alone consistently. What it is, and this distinction matters, is that it's flexible. You're not tied to a desk. You're not answering to a boss. You're not on somebody else's schedule. You can work at it at 10 p.m. or 6 a.m. or during school hours or on a Saturday. Whatever suits you. That flexibility is real and it is so valuable, but it does need ongoing attention. The people that do build something real from this are the ones who treat it like a business from day one. Here's what my week actually looks like in terms of the time that I put into self-publishing. I spend time each week on research, looking at what's selling, what's trending, what gaps exist in the market, not hours, maybe an hour or so, enough to stay current. I spend time on creation, working on new books or updating my existing ones, and this varies depending on what stage I'm at with a particular project. I check my dashboard, so I look at sales, I look at bestseller ranks on existing books, I look at my Amazon ads, any listings that have dropped significantly in rank, and whatever might need attention. And that's broadly it. It's not 40 hours a week, but it's not nothing either. Treat it like a business that you're actively building, not like the lotto ticket that you bought. So your action step. Decide right now what your weekly self-publishing routine looks like. What day and time are you going to do your research? What are you going to work on with the creation of books? Even if it's 3 sessions of 30 minutes each, write it in your calendar like you've made an appointment with yourself. The publishers who build something real are almost always the ones who show up consistently, not the ones that work in intense bursts and then disappear for weeks or months. So that is 2 decades of online business experience, 8 years of self-publishing experience condensed into just a few minutes and 5 things that I wish I had known at the start. Evaluate business models on whether they fit your life, not just whether they can make money. Use limited time better by doing just one thing per working session rather than trying to do everything at once. Choose your first book based on what the data says is selling, not only what you personally love. Once you do have books published, fix what you have before you add more and treat this like the real business that it is, because the people who do are the ones who actually build something that can make real income. I am currently building a course that takes everything that I have learned over the last 8 years and more and puts it into a proper step-by-step roadmap so you don't have to piece it together the way that I did years ago just from scattered blog posts and YouTube videos with gaps in all the wrong places. If that is something that you're interested in, the link to join the waitlist is down in the description below. Waitlist members will get first access. And if this video was useful, subscribe because that is what I do here. The honest version of building a self-publishing business, not the highlight reel, the real thing. And if you did enjoy this video, YouTube thinks that you might like these ones too. So please go check them out to learn more about self-publishing your own low and medium content books on Amazon. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.